a record year, 548 million across 139 deals. So that, just from a pure Saudi Arabian perspective, is a huge exponential growth, and that's thanks to many of the efforts of the people in the room here today. But even if you look at it from a MENA perspective, so we take one step out, again, scale remains the name of the game for all companies that are looking to access markets. And I'm even more excited, selfishly, as Magnet, when you look at Africa, Pakistan, and Turkey. But when you look at the Middle East, a record year, 590 deals, up 10% in terms of the number of transactions, $2.6 billion worth of capital, 138% higher than the year before, 35 exits, and that's more than the previous record of 2019, and 392 different investors that have made investments, whether that's PE, VC, accelerators, angel groups, up 42% compared to the last year, of which 44% come from outside of the region. So not only is the absolute number of investors coming to the region growing, but the participation coming from the international community continues to be extremely positive. And I think that's a testament to all of the work that everyone in this room, as well as the wider ecosystem, have been doing. And with that, I would like to welcome each of the panelists that we have here today to discuss kind of where we're at, what got us here, and some of the predictions and thoughts of where it's going to take us in the next 12 months. We've had some turbulent years in the last 2-3 years, and I had a panel discussion this morning with Walid where we were talking about valuations, and I might ask other people on the panel today to talk about kind of where we're at from that perspective when you're injecting capital. But I have His Excellency Dr. Nabil Koshak, CEO of Saudi Venture Capital Company, Lulwa Bakr, who's the partner of Global Ventures, Walid Fazza, partner and COO at MSA Capital, and Qusay Al Saif, who's the CEO of the Saudi Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. So, as I ask, I'll try and ask each of you individual questions, but if any of you have opposing views, they're more than welcome, and if you have any additional views, please jump in. Dr. Nabil said I shouldn't ask him the first question, but I will, because I would like to get his views in setting the tone of the ecosystem. Record year of capital here, record year of capital globally, but I mean, if you had to characterize the evolution of the COVID era into last year, what do you think have been the real drivers to the growth locally as opposed to kind of internationally for venture capital investment?
Sure. So definitely, first of all, actually, thank you, Jada and Jada's team, actually, for organizing this amazing event and crowd. I think what's interesting, let me start actually by adding one very interesting record that happened this quarter specifically, where 16 exits happened during Q1 this year across the MENA region. This is a record where you have to an exit because we were really hesitant about exits, what's going to happen with these investments. So I think that's going to also stimulate more, encourage more investment happening in that sense. And to start with, actually, there are, I would say, many pillars. I don't want to start with SVC and Jada, I will keep that to the last, but I think what's interesting is that governments across the MENA region realizing the value of supporting startups and the entrepreneurial scene at large. And we are seeing this through many initiatives and programs. The second thing, actually, the aggressive and fast pace of updating policies and regulations and the whole regulatory environment, and that's going to be unleashing the potential of startups and investment in startups. The third pillar would be actually the availability of unique entrepreneurs who are, from day one, they want to build high growth companies that will be going global beyond specific geography. So that's encouraging cross-country activities, cross-border activities, and that's actually, it's a transformation. And somebody was asking me about entrepreneurs, what's happening among different entrepreneurs here in Saudi across the MENA region. With my personal communication with entrepreneurs, I'm seeing not only different people, I'm seeing different creators. and I'm seeing this when every day I meet an entrepreneur and listen to what they have been doing in terms of the design of the business model, their growth strategy, the team building, they're doing it. So I think they're doing it in a different manner where it's really going to help actually building these high growth companies, and this is where investors will be. A fourth pillar, definitely the availability of risk capital or venture capital. And we saw the government fund of funds programs, SVC, Jada, and others across the MENA region. And that actually was instrumental in terms of the availability of risk capital versus the availability of quality investable deals. And we'll always have this balance and imbalance in that, but it's going to correct. So I have been in this sector for the last 12 years. So I remember 12 years back, I was part of incubation/acceleration programs. We were trying to help startups to launch their companies and entrepreneurs, but then nobody would invest in them. And these companies, I witnessed here, at least in Saudi Arabia, creating high growth companies, and they were dying, and nobody was investing in them. So I think, and that was a debate, is it the availability of risk capital or the availability of quality investable deals? My observation during the last year when I joined SVC, it's the other way around. I think the availability of risk capital is going to do the pull of quality investable deals. And I think also the emerging fund managers, the regional, the global fund managers are seeing that when they're there, they will be helping these companies actually to be launched and exited. And we have seen this in many cases. Maybe I will tap more into exits. I think exits definitely was instrumental to stimulate venture investment across the MENA region. Definitely the Careem and Uber. And lately, I was thinking what was happening actually, especially in Saudi Arabia last year, it's going to happen in 2025, especially the Jahez exit led by Impact. Abdulaziz Al-Amran is here. He's a great, emerging, used to be an emerging manager now. He's a superhero actually in this sector, where he first launched the first CMA licensed investment firm in Saudi Arabia. And the first fund, actually, CMA licensed fund, also focusing on seed, and then the growth fund. And there's also the pre-IPO fund for Jahez, to help Jahez to be listed. And also now there is the new fund now being launched or in the process of being launched. But what's interesting actually, that was an eye-opener for LPs, angel investors, everybody, is really the listing of the first venture startup backed earlier by the founders, the investors, and also the pre-IPO fund is to be listed in the Islamic land, which is Jahez. And I think these are breakthroughs. Another very interesting story, I'm sorry, it was a long response, answer, but I think another interesting story that two funds applied to our program. And Q4, one of them we approved to invest in, the other one we are in the final stage to approve them. They came back to us, they said, thank you for stimulating this venture investment. We managed to actually fundraise only from private family offices, corporates, and we don't need your money. And that was a success for I think, Jada and SVC, where this ecosystem is evolving and emerging. Without this government support, we kickstart the ecosystem, and then we need to pull out to allow more private investors, family offices, and corporates and to join the scene. And that was a success, where Khwarizmi raised $65 million with zero government investment as an LP. And also Impact 46 growth. So there is no government actually LP in that fund. I think these are breakthroughs. We thought it's going to happen like 2025 or 26, but it happened. Definitely other factors happened, which is COVID. Everybody went into this digital transformation and the digital economy, working from home and schooling and everything. But I think there are many pillars, many ingredients actually in the ecosystem helped in this transformation that happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Very comprehensive. So there's a bunch of things that I'll probably touch on as we go along the conversation. Lulwa, Global Ventures, one of the most active VCs, not only in MENA, but also having made investments in Africa, Pakistan. One of the trends that we begin to note is that with the mindset of scale is the name of the game, that people are looking beyond the borders of the historical geographical regions that we've looked at. How have you seen the mindset of founders change? And what does it tell you when you see a Saudi acquiring an Egyptian company, investing in a Pakistani company, looking to go beyond specific geographies as an investor?
All right, thank you, Philip, and thanks everybody. It's such an honor to be here. Actually, I always find that following Dr. Nabil is a very difficult act to follow, but also when he steals your thunder, it becomes even more difficult. And I just wanted to say that I spot on everything he said, and it was such an amazing experience to be part of the first VC-backed technology-listed company. I'd like to also, later on when we're talking about exits, touch a bit more on that. So back to your point, I mean, when I first started looking at even investing in my own capacity as an angel in 2015, maybe 16 here in Saudi, I would, and referring to the title of this panel, I would meet entrepreneurs who I think, or founders who I think are really diamonds in the rough. They're there, they have a lot going for them, but they just need that kind of environment that, and it was lacking at the time, that kind of environment that can really incubate them and take them to the next level and help them with, really putting the roots in the ground, but also, and then also scaling. I think that has changed tremendously in the past few years, and a lot of it goes back to the fact that there has been a lot of awareness and education both on the investor side and on the founder side, and the availability of the right type of capital, not just the capital that says take my money, do whatever you want to do with it, but the capital that brings value to the table, and that's very important. Now, when I see, for example, companies like Jahiz going out to the capital markets to raise funds with the particular purpose of growing inorganically, I see startups like Sari going out and saying, I want to get into the Egyptian market. I'm not going to build it myself. I'm actually going to acquire it, or the Pakistani market, what have you. I think that's a very, very healthy sign, because at the end of the day, scale comes with this kind of mentality, the kind of mentality where I know I have the skills to bring it all together, but I don't need to build it all myself from scratch. Otherwise, it will just take much longer time horizon. And the way to go about it, I mean, you're not always going to end up with a winning proposition. You might need to, you win some, lose some, but it is a shorter path to scalability. And it's also the shorter path to the unicorn, which everybody has their eyes on.
Cool, thank you very much. Qusay, you have a great bird's eye view of kind of the ecosystem specifically here. While we're all pointing out a rosy picture for the ecosystem, there remain certain challenges, whether it's for the founders or for gaining investors into this space. Depending on who you speak to, whether it's a late stage startup or an early stage startup, they'll all complain that there's a lack of capital for them. What do you see as some of the pain points that need to be addressed currently in the ecosystem that people should be aware of?
And before that, actually, I would like to congratulate actually Qusay for launching Sadu Capital. It's the first fund.
أبو حمزة الله يعطيك العافية. شكرا. It was a very exciting week for Sadu and SVC. We're very excited to work with leading and institutional investors in the region, the likes of SVC and Jada. So we're very happy at the Sadu family. But back to your point, Philip, we at the association, when I wear the association hat, we consider the 270 growth rate that we've achieved last year a history. We consider the Jahiz amazing IPO a little bit history that we're proud of. Our question is, or what keeps us busy these days, is how we keep this momentum, how we keep this 270 for even few more years and expanding. With that, main challenges arise. Deal flow. Do we have sufficient deal flow? What should we do with regards to deal flow? That's one. The second is regulations. We've seen how the regulations enabled Impact, Sadu, Mirak, and many others to have their license in Saudi. And that is a small change that enable us to have Jahez today. What other small changes here and there that we could have that will enable on a fund level and on a firm level as a startup to expand and go beyond? The fintech labs, we're seeking more of a labs or a sandbox with every government body. Abu Hamza and I attended a Sidaya event where they're considering a lab for their data. The more there are data for startups to play with, the more innovation and creativity we will have. And that is a major challenge for us, unlocking those data from the private sector and the government. With regulations, we move to, maybe I'll try to convince Jada and SVC and the Ministry of Investment to host foreign LPs. We know that the venture capital industry and the private equity industry is dependent on large and institutional LPs. And we haven't seen those LPs in Saudi yet. We have a bunch of Saudi amazing LPs, but we believe that the market could benefit from having an institutional international ones. And that's a major goal for the association. The association has three major pillars. We work on lobbying and improving the regulations in Saudi with the blessing of our partners in the government. That's one major theme. The second theme is we try and strive to create value to the membership base. Today, SVC, Jada, Impact, and many others are, Global Ventures, MSA, are part of the association. And with those members, we're trying to create value for them in terms of education to their employees, in terms of raising the bar for best practices on a fund level, on a firm level, on a startup level. The third pillar is we try to connect the ecosystem. We create those events. If some of us here attended the investor majlis that we host almost monthly, where we discuss deep stories and challenges about the PEVC ecosystem, that is what keeps us busy these days in knowing and trying to project where Saudi will be in the next few years. So these are major themes.
Okay.
Can I just add to that? And I would commend all the activities and the efforts that the association are making to mainly open a dialogue with the regulators and the people who are writing the rules. And this is very, very important at this point in time. I mean, we can we need to congratulate ourselves for where we've arrived so far in such a record time. And this is very important. But we also need to recognize that we do have a long road ahead of us in terms of how to improve things and make them better. So yes, definitely the open dialogue with the CMA on facilitating exits, open dialogue with the Zakat and Tax Authority on looking at a more favorable way of dealing with the gig economy rather than what's happening to the gig economy in Europe and so forth. So we learn from these mistakes and we don't replicate them. So I can mention so many things that you guys are doing. I think that's very commendable.
Thank you.
Walid, we came from an interesting conversation this morning, and I'm remiss not to kind of take the opportunity for you to share maybe some of the key takeaways from your perspective on valuations in the region in the current state of affairs, both the positive trend as well as potentially some of the red flags that were highlighted from your perspective on where we are from a venture capital perspective for the MENA region.
Thank you, Philip, and thank you, Jada, for putting this great event together. Moreover, to what Dr. Nabil said, we had all the ingredients at the right time to create a perfect storm in the MENA region. We got the money, governments woke up, talent came back, technology was available, and then COVID hit us over the edge.
The blender.
Absolutely. It was the ingredients for a perfect storm, and congratulations to everybody, because where we are here today was just a dream 12 years ago when the first Yahoo Maktub exit happened in 2009. And just where we are today and the fact that we're talking about Web3 and NFTs and NEOM and how we can move forward is just an incredible achievement. And at the risk of sounding cheesy, this achievement has happened mainly because of the human capital that's available, that's running these funds, and that is connecting together. I could not imagine a more incredible panel that I have here today that has really built this ecosystem and everybody in the room. You can imagine that none of this could have been done without human beings coordinating, working together, trusting each other, and having hope. So I think it's fundamentally a human ingredient that has made this all possible. So that's the rosy side of things. We're here now. What do we have to look forward to, and what are we going to do? You have international capital coming in. You have more fund managers. You have talent that are leaving what they're doing or exiting their corporate jobs and saying, why am I wasting my time? Let me go get capital. You know, valuations are high. This is the perfect time to be an entrepreneur. I have two things to say about that. One, yes, never in history has it been a better time to be an entrepreneur. If you're a good entrepreneur that takes care of people's money and wants to build a successful business. It's the worst time to be an entrepreneur if you're going to just go after high valuations, get the money, and not build a sustainable business model that is able to scale, because ajilan am ajilan, we're going to get a curve that's going to come down and give the market a little bit of a correction. And we need to be psychologically ready for that to happen. I think the capital that is coming in and the excitement that we're seeing is great cause to celebrate, but it's also cause for us to really be aware of how we build the second generation of entrepreneurs and of venture capital and continue the hope that we've built. So this whole ecosystem was built on two main factors: hope and trust. The hope came from exits like Kareem, and the trust came from the early investors that got their money back. And that got us a flywheel. The worst thing that could potentially happen is if we hit a downturn, the valuations go down, there's not enough capital, and we lose the hope and the trust. So I feel like everybody in the room has been able to get that hope and trust to where it is today, and we absolutely need to continue doing that. And the reason and the way that we do that is by building structures. The government is coming in, VCs are now saying, we don't want your money and we're moving forward. That's very important. VC associations as well. We need to be able to continue building it together. And the biggest point is Mazen's earlier panel, scalability. Because we know that's what brings exits. We have to break down the barriers absolutely, completely in the Middle East to be able to scale these companies. There are a couple of ways to do that. Mergers and acquisitions, I think, is going to be one that is very clear, because we've built these silos, now we need to unite them. And I think that's what's going to really put the Middle East on the map for the long term. So we can no longer think within our silos or within our industry or within our geography. We really have to think cross-border. And the next aspiration, I'm saying quite a bit, but the next aspiration, I think, is look at what's happening on the east side. Look what's happening in India. Look what's happening in China. How can we learn from those models and adapt them? In India, in 2021, they had over $40 billion of investment go into the asset class, and they've created over 50 unicorns. And that's where we need to go. And we should really keep our focus on that target within the next 5 years, because we really need to build that stability and that growth.
Thank you. I mean, all of you have mentioned exits, so I'm going to jump on this opportunity. Dr. Nabil, there's a stat that I actually recently discovered, and I was sharing it this morning. In the MENA region, we've had 2,500 investments take place over the last 5 years. But actually, and while I thank you for even telling me that there were 16 this quarter, which I wasn't aware of, although it came from Magnet.
Magnet, actually.
Yeah, it came
Twitter
from
account. I got it from you.
There was 150 exits in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. That means less than 6% of all transactions have potentially gone towards an exit. And of course, there's all the different types.